I try not to have any ego with a project, but I always say the movie itself has a tremendous ego, and it's kind of all-consuming, all-devouring, and we have to feed it constantly.
Ever been responsible for completing a big project? How about a $17 million project fraught with pressure, politics, and big stars' egos? Today we speak with someone who knows all about that. Joe Carnahan, director of Smokin Aces, Narc, and the upcoming White Jazz starring George Clooney. Joe Carnahan, welcome to Dog and Pony.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Sure. We're going to warm up by taking you once around the track.
Sure.
This is where I ask you a series of questions. You give me quick answers. We'll do as many as we can in 30 seconds. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. Where did you grow up?
Michigan.
Reno or Vegas?
Vegas.
Business role model?
Warren Buffett.
Favorite movie of all time?
Raging Bull.
Film or digital?
Film.
Best director in Hollywood?
Paul Thomas Anderson.
What club is the world's most popular football team?
Manchester United.
What's the worst name you've ever been called by an actor or an agent?
Jerk off.
All right, you've been once around the track. To what extent do you have to be a good business person to be a good director?
Oh, I think you have to be. I think you have to be astute in the sense of, listen, you can't be. I was never in a position where I felt we're just going to just kind of be a profligate and waste of people's money and just do these things. I always approached it still from that, coming from a real independent background and independent filmmaking and kind of guerrilla filmmaking you're still never aware of the money. You're never aware of, you just know things cost, and that, okay, one day equals X amount of production dollars, and therefore to save money you must either lose days or lose equipment or lose, So I think you have to be, I think you can't just kind of, fling yourself into it and hope that, you have to have some business acumen.
So each film is its own P&L, right? And each star and or director and agent is their own little enterprise that's working on brand X, right?
Absolutely.
How do you align those sometimes conflicting initiatives?
Well, that's tough because I've worked in Smokin Aces, where I was working with some people and who had a fairly Alicia Keys in common. They had a separate kind of following, and that's always interesting when you approach it like that, because there's who their fans are accustomed to in this one world, which is they're huge in music, and then there's what I need to achieve. So it was always you get into potentially sticky situations because people don't want to feel like they're overextending or like, what is my audience going to think of this and that. So that can be tricky, but I think that there has to be integration, and it's got to be it's like everybody's got to be here kind of fulfilling the same goal, and that goal is, we're making this movie, and this movie exists on paper, and it's this. It's not, it's always going to be an apple. It's never going to be an orange. So I think you have to have an understanding from jump, or you risk, going down the rabbit hole, and that's that. You're gonna, it's like, well, I don't want to do that, because then it just becomes a series of kind of running compromises, and nobody's happy.
So casting is like HR, right? So you've got to go out and hire the right people, make sure it's the right mix to get the job done.
Yeah, and you have to have a good human resources, good headhunter that goes out and kind of, puts these people in front of you. And again, you have to find, like anything else, like-minded individuals, and they have the same kind of goals and minds.
Right. What would your film crews say about you?
I think I run a good set, man. I have fun. I think that it's, listen, I think there's different energies for different kinds of movies, and obviously, something like Narc was made under duress. It was made under really kind of difficult conditions. However, that angst kind of worked its way into the fabric of that movie, so that wound up being, I think, a benefit. I wouldn't want to repeat that process, but it wound up being advantageous for the film. I played music on set, and I DJ'd and took requests, and I wanted everybody to have a good time. And I think that for White Jazz, it'll be a different energy, and you just have to be, pliable in the sense that you don't get any like fixed ideas about it must be this. Creatively, it's like I always say, it's like I try not to have any ego with a project, but I always say the movie itself has a tremendous ego, and it's kind of all-consuming, all-devouring, and we have to feed it constantly. So whatever that is, if you've got it, this guy's got it, whatever. It runs through channels and ultimately, into this kind of this big machine, this big maw that is the film or the work. So, but I think that I think my crews, I get good, return business. So I think so far so good.
Yeah. What do you tell somebody that's young, wants to get into the film business?
That we have yet to find a suitable replacement for hustle and drive and just get after it. I think a lot of people, are content to sit back and kind of wait for things, or this opportunity hasn't opened. And I feel like if you're not absolutely kicking on, reefing on every door that's available to you, then you're not doing, it's not due diligence.
All right, Joe Carnahan, Hollywood superstar. Now it's time for a segment we call None of Your Business.
None of Your Business.
That's where I ask you slightly impolite questions to which you can either shed light or tell me none of your business.
Slightly impolite.
Slightly
Just
impolite.
slightly. Okay.
Who's the biggest a-hole in Hollywood?
Man.
It doesn't have to be substantiated.
You know what? You know who's a massive douchebag?
Who's that?
Joe Pitka, who's a commercial director. I almost got in a fight with him at the Cannes Film Festival.
Right.
And Pitka is a douchebag.
Joe Carnahan puts it on the record.
That's right.
Here on Dog and Pony. All right, Jeremy Piven just got hired by Will Ferrell to play a used car dealer. Is this typecasting?
Jeremy in real life, and a lot of people wouldn't know this, but he's a reasonably quiet guy. He doesn't, and I think, but he's so good at turning it on,
right?
That it just becomes this. He always tells me, people come up and say, "Hey, Ari," or immediately think he's that guy.
Yeah.
And and he's actually fairly reserved. It's funny. I mean, you never look at him and know that he's like this. But he is a reasonably kind of reserved guy, and I think that he's such a breakout. And I watch that show. The only time to me that show really jams and pops is when he's on screen.
Yeah. To what extent is that show accurate?
The way that they talk about the clubs and whatever, like Ledoux and all these kind of big hip Hollywood clubs and Geisha House and so on is fairly accurate.
What pays more, writing or directing?
Directing.
Yeah.
A lot more.
How handsome is George Clooney?
Handsome as hell.
Really?
Yeah.
More than you and me?
Amazingly so. Yeah.
God,
I know.
believe that.
I know. I know. One of those guys you meet him and go, "That's a handsome son of a bitch." That's a handsome guy.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Anything you want to plug before we take off?
Nothing I can think of. My son's birthday. My son's 10th birthday is coming up in 2 weeks. So.
All right. What are you going to get him?
A lump on the head. If he keeps it up. If he keeps it up.
Joe Carnahan, world-famous director of commercials and feature films. Thanks for joining us on Dog and Pony today.
I'm very happy. Thanks for having me.
And as always, if you've got questions, comments, or suggestions for upcoming guests, you can email me at paul@dogandpony.tv. Thanks for stopping by. See you soon.
Dog and Pony, Dog and Pony.